They're out there, lurking in the vastness of space. Planets so weird, even science fiction could not foresee them. For the first time ever, scientists are discovering alien worlds beyond our solar system. Places where ice is hot and rain is made of iron. They are uncharted, unearthly, and unpredictable. And somewhere, hidden among these strange new worlds, scientists seek the greatest discoveries of all. Planets like ours, alien Earths.
35 seconds. Let's go. Storage tank press closed.
March 6, 2009.
22 seconds.
Later, GN2 pressure go.
This Delta II rocket is going through its final pre-flight check.
71.3.
Drop 1.
Engine start, 1-0, and liftoff.
It is the start of an extraordinarily ambitious mission. The Kepler Space Observatory is hunting for planets like Earth within a region of 100,000 stars. It is the culmination of a journey that began more than a decade ago with one of the most profound scientific discoveries ever made. (1995). Swiss astronomer Michel Mayor and his team make a routine observation of stars in the constellation Pegasus, located 50 light-years away. But the instruments show something strange. One star is violently lurching and wobbling.
What we discovered, it's one of these stars have a velocity changing with time.
What is powerful enough to disturb a star the size of our sun? Mayor offers a radical answer: a planet. But no one has ever seen a planet around another sun-like star.
Problem in detecting planets around other stars is that as a planet orbits a nearby star, that planet gets lost because of its feeble light in the glare of the very bright star.
In spite of the odds, Mayor relies on his data and is convinced the wobbles are caused by the gravitational pull of an orbiting planet.
When I read this claim from Michel Mayor, I was very skeptical. There had been many false claims of the first planet ever discovered around another star, and I thought to myself, oh boy, here we go again. So I decided to observe the star on 4 consecutive nights. And stunningly, the star was shown to wobble exactly as Michel Mayor had said.
Michel Mayor and his teammate Didier Queloz announced their discovery. It rocks the scientific community.
They had found for the first time reproducible, confirmable evidence of the existence of a planet around a sun-like star.
Officially called 51 Pegasi b, the planet is nicknamed Bellerophon in honor of the Greek hero who tamed the winged horse Pegasus. It is a planet that breaks all the rules. Bellerophon roasts in the blazing starlight at temperatures of roughly 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. It is nearly 150 times more massive than Earth and is a gas giant like Jupiter.
A gas giant is a planet made mostly of hydrogen and helium. Only the outer layers are gas,
But inside, hydrogen and helium is compressed to huge, huge, huge pressures. It doesn't resemble a gas at all.
Unlike anything found in our solar system, this is an entirely new class of planet, what scientists call a hot Jupiter.
If you go to Hawaii and see the lava flow there, that's how hot a hot Jupiter is. It's very, very hot.
The Earth is a comfortable 93 million miles away from the Sun.
These hot Jupiters are roughly 100 times closer, and so the amount of sunlight that they get is 10,000 times larger.
If this represents a star, and this a hot Jupiter is 3 to 4 stellar diameters away from the star. So that would be 1, 2, 3. This is how close a hot Jupiter would be to its star. Hot Jupiters are tidally locked. They present the same face to the star at all times, just like the moon does to Earth.
It's going to be permanent daylight on one side and permanent nighttime on the back. If I were stuck on a hot Jupiter, I'd want to be on the back side and hope that some of the heat from the front side facing the star would make its way around the back.
The variations in temperature make Bellerophon's atmosphere extremely windy. The wind howls at thousands of miles per hour, far beyond anything we could ever withstand. The heat blast guarantees water vapor cannot exist. But that doesn't mean there is no rain.
It's far too hot for water liquid clouds to form here. But instead, these clouds would be made out of iron.
Iron vapor can exist at temperatures much higher than water. And because of that, things could get a little messy.
You better have an umbrella that's pretty sturdy, because the iron is going to start coating your umbrella very rapidly and making it extremely heavy and just crush that umbrella.
The sky overhead is filled with dancing curtains of color. Charged particles from the nearby star make auroras far more extreme than the northern lights on Earth. There is something even more unique about this newly discovered world. Bellerophon orbits its sun in a blistering 4.2 days.
No self-respecting planet goes around a star in 4.2 days. None of the planets in our solar system take such a short amount of time.
For scientists, the tiny orbit challenges long-held notions of how planets form.
The fact that the planet was orbiting every 4 days was a total puzzle until one night in the middle of the night I woke up and said, well, this must be proof that planets migrate inwards. They don't stay put where they are.
The key to the puzzle is found in how planets are made.
Planets are a byproduct of star formation. When stars form, they have a disk of dust and debris around them, and out of that debris, planets form.
Much of what we know comes from Hubble's Space Telescope, as it aims at regions like the Eagle Nebula. This interstellar cloud is studded with collapsing disks of dust and gas. A giant clump grows in the center of each disk. Temperatures reach a searing 18 million degrees. The same nuclear fusion that powers our sun is unleashed. The star is born. Radiation from the star generates a stellar wind that sweeps away leftover dust and debris. Some of the dust survives and remains in orbit around the newborn star. Over millions of years, the dust sticks together, forming knots that grow into asteroids, and the asteroids grow into planets. These planets migrate through the disk until they find a stable orbit. This is why Bellerophon is so close to its parent star. But one newly discovered world has found its stable orbit in a place no planet should ever go. 2001. Hubble Space Telescope is directed to an obscure star some 150 light-years away from Earth, in the constellation of Pegasus. This is the same region where Bellerophon was found 6 years earlier. Hubble is tracking another hot Jupiter, discovered by astronomer Jeff Marcy. But this one is different from Bellerophon.
You've probably heard of the planet HD 209458b. It's a terrible name.
A terrible name for a terrible place. HD 209458b has been dubbed by some as Osiris, after the Egyptian god of the dead. Osiris is over 200 times more massive than Earth. It has migrated perilously close to its sun, at a mere 4 million miles from the blazing solar surface. Osiris broils in a planetary hell. The average daily temperature on Osiris is over 2,000 degrees. Forget global warming. This is global frying, and it causes Osiris to lose an estimated 550,000 tons of air every second.
There's a leak of gas, a steady stream of hydrogen and helium, and that's making a big, huge cloud all around the planet.
Its atmosphere is bleeding into space. Scientists speculate that a colossal trail of gas spirals behind the planet for thousands of miles. Osiris presents an unprecedented opportunity for astronomers. Using Hubble, they analyze the alien planet's bloated atmosphere.
This is the absolutely first time where we could tell what is the composition of the atmosphere of an extrasolar planet.
Surprisingly, Hubble detects many of the basic chemicals needed for life. Sodium, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But Osiris is far too hot for life as we know it.
There may be other forms of life, however, that thrive on higher temperatures.
But there's no solid surface as we know it on a hot Jupiter. So this life would have to be just tiny little microbes floating around on aerosols. And on our own Earth, we have life that floats around in our atmosphere. But that life didn't start there. So life almost certainly would not exist on hot Jupiters.
Astronomers have discovered many hot Jupiters since Bellerophon was found in 1995. But conditions on these worlds rule them out as places where the drama of life can unfold. One of these gas giants is a planet that teases the rules of evolution. Astronomer Jeff Marcy discovers something shocking about a planet orbiting a star called 16 Cygnus b, located some 70 light-years away in the constellation of Cygnus, the Swan.
The planet was clearly in an elongated orbit, bringing the planet close to and then far from the host star. And this, of course, defied our expectations based on our own solar system, where all of the planets go around our sun in nearly circular orbits like phonograph grooves in a record.
Like a giant yo-yo in space, the gas giant swings back and forth across its solar system. That is like the Earth swooping 25 million miles closer to the Sun, then slinging past Mars, all the way out towards Jupiter every year. And like all of the gas giants in our solar system, this yo-yo planet might have an entourage of moons. Marcy speculates that one of these moons could be similar to Earth.
And here's where the interesting story begins. Imagine a rocky moon with lakes, oceans, maybe streams and waterfalls on the surface. The moon orbiting its planet, the two of them orbiting the host star.
Unlike the airless moon that circles the Earth, this moon is a world with extreme seasons. On Earth, the seasons are caused by the tilt of our planet. Here, they are caused by the elongated orbit.
These poor planets that are in these elongated elliptical orbits suffer terrible changes in their climate throughout a year.
As they make their closest approach, the yo-yo planet and its moon are blowtorched by the star. Summer begins. The atmosphere on the Earth-like moon is savaged with raging storms. Category 5 hurricanes on Earth are tiny eddies compared to the monster vortexes that form here. The clouds thicken as the water evaporates.
Temperatures rise dramatically. Any water or gases would heat up, and indeed the oceans would boil into steam, so you'd end up with a big steam bath.
During the peak of the summer, the entire moon is smothered in 800-degree temperatures. This is the closest approach to the star. During its 26-month orbit, the summer season is barely 2 months long. But what a season! The planet and its moon swing away from the furnace of the star. Temperatures fall to ranges we would find temperate and comfortable. With the coming of fall, the rains return to the parched and roasted moon. Dry ocean basins are replenished, and the seas rise to form new shorelines. Tranquility prevails as the yo-yo planet and its moon slip into the deep freeze of winter. Now, over 200 million miles from the star, the daytime sky is dark. Temperatures hover around 260 degrees below. Winters are long, lasting 17 months. With the coming of spring, the sun looms large in the skies over this hapless moon as the ice cracks and melts violently. Huge icebergs calve into a stormy and fast-rising ocean. For 2 preciously short periods, during the spring thaw and the autumn rains, the climate on this Earth-like moon is balmy and comfortable. At a distance of 93 million miles from the star, roughly the same distance as Earth from the Sun, the elliptical orbit of this planet and its moon crosses an area around the star some scientists call the Goldilocks zone. The conditions here are just right for life.
If you're too close to the star, then it's too hot. If you're too far away, then it's going to be too cold and everything's going to be icy. But then if you're right in the middle, it's just right.
Every star has a Goldilocks zone. Where that zone is depends on the size and temperature of the star. In our solar system, Venus marks the inner boundary and Mars the outer boundary. Earth and its abundance of life is right in the middle. The Yo-Yo planet passes through the Goldilocks zone twice a year. For 3.5 months during the spring as it races inbound, and again in the fall for 3.5 months as it hurtles back into the colder reaches of space. Could life survive the conditions outside the Goldilocks zone?
There could be life forms that are smart enough to hibernate, as do animals on the Earth during the winter season. If this sounds fantastic, I offer you the tidal zones on the Earth. On the tidal zones, life proliferates, of course, near the seashore, and they do so despite tides. The water coming in, covering many of the life forms, the water going out at low tide, and yet those species survive perfectly well.
The strange cycle of the Yo-Yo planet's orbit creates fleeting conditions suitable for life, but also for death. Some alien planets are even more bizarre. Imagine a world that has no star to orbit. Scientists speculate that our galaxy is teeming with rogue planets, adrift in the murky lanes of interstellar space. These are orphaned worlds, planets that are booted from their solar systems by the chaos of planetary migration. Astronomers call such worlds planemos.
Planemos are planets without a star. They're just drifting through the galaxy indefinitely.
What massive force would it take to kick a planet out of the solar system?
When a young star forms with a contingent of planets around it, many of those planets gravitationally interact with each other. They yank on each other, slingshot each other, so that one of them is ejected from the planetary system, voted off the island, if you will.
If you were, unfortunately, a resident on a planet that was kicked out by a collision or a near collision with another large object, you'd probably rapidly move out of the habitable zone.
There are hundreds of billions of these lost, wayward, poor, wandering planets out in our Milky Way galaxy with no parent star to warm them up.
Cold, dark, quiet. Because planemos have no sun, they are worlds without days or years. They keep vigil through an eternal night. Planemos are solitary wanderers, sentinels of the galaxy. Just because it's out there drifting in space doesn't mean a planemo is dead.
If the planemo is a rocky world, it could well have life on it.
A small rocky planemo without an atmosphere will slumber in extreme cold, far colder than the coldest winter day on our own South Pole. But a planemo large enough to retain an atmosphere traps the heat generated when the planet was first formed. It is the ultimate greenhouse effect. The heat and energy comes from the molten core deep inside the lonely planet. If the planemo is a gas giant like Jupiter, it may have a system of moons. The gravitational pull between the planemo and its moons creates friction, causing the interior of the moons to stay warm.
These moons could also have life on them, in the same way that Jupiter's moon Io has volcanoes and has a lot of heat energy being generated by interactions with Jupiter and the other moons.
If anything lives here, it will be single cells, like common bacteria found on Earth. Not complex life forms. Without a sun to provide photosynthesis, these tiny organisms derive their energy from the chemistry in the soil of the planemo, or its moon. On Earth, there are similar conditions. Colonies of bacteria are found deep within mine shafts in South Africa. They have no access to oxygen nor light and survive entirely on the chemicals they make from the surrounding dirt. Their metabolisms are extremely slow, and they reproduce only once every 1,000 years. If life dwells on a sunless planemo, it could be organisms like them, marooned when their planet was young. While planemos slumber undisturbed, there are worse places to be in the universe. Like in the company of this lethal pulsar, some 980 light years from Earth, in the constellation of Virgo. From afar, a pulsar looks like a blinking light, but up close, pulsars machine gun their surroundings with deadly radiation. They are no place for planets. Yet something interferes with the precision of this pulsar. One explanation is that the anomaly is caused by a planet. But many astronomers are skeptical that planets orbiting a pulsar can exist.
The reason that's a problem is because pulsars are formed in these incredible explosions.
When a red giant star explodes, a titanic fireball known as a supernova unleashes as much energy in 1 minute as our sun generates in its lifetime.
When a star goes supernova, the shockwave is so immense it's hard to imagine any planet surviving that.
When the cosmic dust clears, all that remains is the crushed core of the red giant, pulsing in the heart of an expanding debris field. Matter blasted from the colossal explosion falls back to the pulsar and forms a disk. Within this chaos, a new world arises, born of fire and destruction, a planetary zombie raised from the carcass of the former red giant star.
It's amazing that planets could form in that environment.
A planet orbiting a pulsar will give you the feeling of being in a disco bar with a very strong strobe light, which is the pulsar.
Radiation from this stellar beast breaks down the organic molecules needed for life.
The pulsar has these very strong magnetic fields that are being spun around as the star is rotating quickly, and it's picking up any material, electrons, protons, and speeding them up and slinging them out at high speed. So it's like a solar wind with a vengeance.
I can't imagine that there would be much of an opportunity for even simple life, microbial life, to emerge and to flourish on a planet around a pulsar. Largely because if you were in the pulse, you'd be severely energized, and if you were not in the pulse, you would be completely devoid of energy.
The discovery of pulsar planets shows how new worlds can form in the wake of a star's destruction. No matter where a planet arises, the process of its birth is fraught with danger. Sometimes, the violence is so great, the end of the world comes before the beginning. 2007, Astronomers using the giant Gemini North telescope make a strange discovery in the Pleiades cluster some 400 light-years from Earth. A star known only by its catalog number, HD 23514, is surrounded by a giant donut-shaped cloud of dust and gas. The star in the middle of the donut shape is about 100 million years old. A cosmic toddler in astronomical terms. Our Sun is 45 times older. The conditions are perfect for planets to form. But spectral analysis finds something strange. The dust is utterly pulverized. Typically, a newborn star is surrounded by fledgling planets.
Planets form around the young star in a protoplanetary disk of gas and dust. And then these planets go on their merry way orbiting the star, not realizing that they're in an orbit that's too close to another planet.
Millions of years ago, two primordial planets orbiting HD 23514 are spinning toward doom. As the two worlds close in, tidal forces torque each planet from spheres to egg shapes. Nothing remains. The two worlds are annihilated, creating the dust and debris seen around star HD 23514. 4 billion years ago, a similar apocalypse came to Earth. A Mars-sized planet forms in roughly the same orbit as the newborn Earth. Like the planets at HD 23514, Earth and this Mars-sized body are barreling toward each other.
If you happen to be unlucky enough to be standing on a growing planet when it was in the process of still becoming the Earth, you might wake up one morning and notice that the sky was getting darker and darker as a Mars-sized body was coming at you within a period of less than an hour.
And when it hits, the shock wave is felt all over the planet, scouring the surface of the Earth. The collision obliterates one side of the planet. Molten rock sprays out into space. The entire globe is peppered by meteors and noxious vapor.
It would actually make hell look like a Bahamas vacation.
The debris field from the collision coalesces and forms our moon. It is a new beginning for our planet.
Collisions are part of the birth process for planetary systems. Building up a terrestrial planet is probably all about colliding pieces of rock together.
And all across the galaxy, colliding pieces of rock are forming terrestrial worlds that defy the imagination.
There is a new planet out there, a planet we were not aware of existing before.
It is not just one planet. It is a new type of planet. Earth on steroids.
I like to call them super-Earths. They're just like the Earth, except bigger, up to about 10 times the mass of the Earth. One family that the super-Earths resemble just like our own Earth. Continents, oceans. Some of them may be very dry, like Mars. And then another family that we call water worlds or ocean planets that are completely covered with water.
Welcome to Gliese 581c.
This planet was found by Michel Mayor, and it orbits with 2 other planets around a very small star.
It's only 20 light-years away in the constellation of Libra and is one of the smallest terrestrial planets found beyond our solar system. That doesn't mean Gliese 581c is small. It's still a super-Earth with 5 times the mass of our home planet. But it's the possibility of liquid water that excites scientists.
An ocean planet feels like being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, with no land in sight, just water, puffy white clouds, and blue sky above you. The winds on the ocean world are going to be similar to that of the Earth, so it will be a very good place to sail.
The weather's absolutely perfect. Every day you get a clear blue sky, and the sun just stays in the same place. Now, how's that for weather prediction?
No land anywhere, even miles beneath the surface.
This water layer would extend very far down, at least a quarter of the way down in the planet.
But as we dive deeper into the sea, the pressure builds. At 35,000 feet below the surface, we pass the point where the deepest oceans on Earth bottom out. We pass the 100,000-foot mark. The pressure is so great, water itself begins to take on surprising new forms. At a depth of 10 times the greatest ocean depth on Earth, we reach the bottom.
When you have a large amount of water, then at the bottom of an ocean, you will form very high pressure in excess of 1 million atmospheres. And that pressure will compress the liquid water, that is the ocean, into a state which we call ice 7.
No, it's not like ice in your refrigerator. The molecules of water that are in the ice in your refrigerator are kind of all jumbled up. But if you form ice under very high pressure, then the water molecules can become ordered, they can become aligned.
I can show you a crystal that is a very good analog to ice 7. This is halite, also known commonly as rock salt.
Ice 7 may exist within our own solar system. Europa, a moon of Jupiter, could possibly have a mantle of liquid water surrounded by a thick, icy crust. The pressure from the crust is so great that Ice 7 might exist deep within these uncharted seas. If we scale up and thaw out Europa, it could be a water world similar to Gliese 581c.
One could imagine that life could emerge on a water world. After all, water is essential to life on Earth.
Everywhere on Earth where there is water, there is life. You cannot find a sterile drop of water on Earth unless you put it in the microwave yourself.
On this water world, there could be bacteria or any kind of life in the ocean itself.
But not all of the super-Earths are water worlds teeming with life.
When we talk about super-Earths, we talked about 2 major families of mostly rocky with some water and mostly water with an endless ocean. But one has to add to those a 3rd family of probably very rare super-Earths and Earth-like planets, which are called carbon planets.
A carbon planet is unlike anything we've ever seen anywhere. A place with an alien chemistry, but loaded with very earthly treasures. Throughout our galaxy, there are planets barren and poor and inhospitable. But science is on the trail of a new type of planet, an entire world of treasure.
In our own solar system, in our sun and in all the stars nearby, there's always more oxygen than carbon. But if we think of a place in the universe where there's more carbon than oxygen, then planet formation is very different.
Spectral analysis shows carbon to be far more plentiful, 26,000 light-years away near the center of our galaxy. Planets that form here may contain a rich abundance of carbon. The morning sky on a carbon world would be anything but crystal clear and blue.
Are sent away for forensic analysis.
Detectives were there taking samples and photographs, and this was a full investigation by the Criminal Investigation Department.
The next piece of evidence is found by police in the woods at the scene of the sighting.
The police went to the site and they found a series of mysterious marks on the ground, almost like some kind of vehicle with a caterpillar track had been driving backwards and forwards over the grass in this clearing.
The police made an official sketch as evidence of the marks they had seen.
They indicated that an object of several tons had stood there, but there was nothing to show it had been driven or towed away. There was no rational explanation for these marks. They couldn't find any obvious explanation as to what had caused them.
Some of the grass within the confines of these marks was sheared off. The tops of the grass stalks, if you like, had been sheared off and lying within the very framework of the holes in the grass. And it was perplexing because it's very, very rare do you come across physical evidence.
But in 2012, 33 years after the event, comes a startling revelation from Bob Taylor's son-in-law. David Hammond now believes that a sketch he created may have misled people about whether the UFO had legs.
Following the incident, I'd spoken to Bob and had done some freehand sketches of what he'd described. Went through it with him quite a few times and tried to press him for detail. This is a photograph of Bob shortly after the event, and he's holding the original sketch that I did, which was later developed into a more finished drawing, which is this one here. And this pretty accurately represents what he described to me. I had suggested to Bob that this object, which he'd said was in the air, and the marks on the ground must have been connected in some way. He agreed with me, but afterwards I'd realized that I had led him to that. It wasn't something that he'd offered, and so I felt slightly guilty about it.
If the legs in the UFO picture are products of the artist's imagination, could there be a far more rational explanation for the marks in the forest?
It's quite possible that those marks were there on the ground before this incident actually happened. So maybe there had been some four-wheel drive vehicle there of some description that had left those marks. Bob Taylor had come along, had this experience, whatever the source of it was, and there's no obvious connection between the two things. So they don't really prove that there was an alien spacecraft or something extraordinary there. They just add to the overall mystery.
So, had Bob Taylor really seen something? Or might he have suffered a fit or hallucination?
A year before this encounter, Bob Taylor had suffered a series of inexplicable headaches for which he'd gone to his doctor and received treatment, and they'd never got to the bottom of what was causing it.
It is impossible now to establish the cause of Taylor's headaches, but police at the time did consider one possible theory.
There's a theory suggested that Robert Taylor ingested some wild berries in the forest. Now, these berries have the name of Atropa belladonna. They're very, very dangerous because if you ingest these berries, you can die. If you rub the berry fruit on your hand or your wrist, you can suffer hallucinations.
But Taylor's daughter has good reason to believe that toxic berries are not responsible for her father's extraordinary sighting.
He was a gardener and a forester all his life, so he knew not to eat anything poisonous. He would never have eaten anything like that.
Police did have more than just Taylor's word for what happened that day. They also had a vital piece of tangible evidence under analysis: the torn trousers.
These are actually the trousers that Robert Taylor wore on that eventful day. Now, as you can see, this is a very heavy ripped tear on the left-hand side of these trousers. Now, these are heavy-duty material. This is actually police-issue trousers, and as we can see on the left-hand side of the trousers, we have another tear. The forensic report clearly states this was not made by any forest debris, sharp stones, sticks, barbed wire fencing.
Nobody, including the CID, could explain how those rips occurred.
It is my contention that these rips in these trousers were made by some device that attached itself to Robert Taylor's trousers, pulling them very, very forcibly upwards.
Taylor was left with no answer as to what had happened to him that day. And the mystery was one that locals also found difficult to accept.
Dad had a quite hard time for a wee while at Livingston because there was some people calling him various names and laughing at him. And he was beginning to wish he hadn't said anything to anybody at all about it.
But despite the name-calling, Bob Taylor's character was never in doubt, and he was considered by investigators as a reliable witness.
He does come over as a completely straight, down-to-earth man who had no reason to invent a story of this magnitude. What was to be gained from it?
His story never ever changed. He always stayed. Everything was exactly like the day he saw it.
He never once suggested that he may have imagined it. He firmly believed that he saw what he said he saw.
All this makes it one perplexing case, a case that still at this point in time is totally unexplained.
Bob Taylor's case strikes me as a really good example of a genuine eyewitness account of an inexplicable phenomenon.
Within Europe's UFO files, there are cases that defy explanation. Some phenomena are witnessed so often, they provoke debate among the science community and lead to decades of field research. The Hessdalen Valley, Norway. In the early 1980s, hundreds of UFOs are spotted flying over the landscape. Over a 2-year period, the objects dart across the skies more than 20 times a week. Newspaper reports say the locals are crazy, but witnesses are certain of what they've seen.
I see a bright light. It's start moving, and then faster, and gone. What it is, I have no idea.
And for one scientist, it is the beginning of a lifelong mission to unlock the mystery behind the Hessdalen UFOs.
My reaction when I saw it was more, wow. And I think, what could that be?
Arling Strand is a Norwegian technology expert. In 1982, he hears reports of strange events in Hessdalen, a remote 8-mile-long valley with just 200 residents.
I read about it in the newspapers, and some friends of mine also thought we should maybe go up there and try to see it for ourselves.
Locals are reporting strange, glowing objects flying at high speed through the valley. Johan Arvid Aspås, now age 76, was in bed when he first saw a UFO in 1982.
Så jeg hoppet ut sengen og gikk bort til vinduet og så, og da får det et sånt lysende objekt ut i dala, da vet jeg Husum, sakte nordover, med kolossalt lys på.
UFOs had been sighted in the valley since the 1900s, but in the early 1980s they appear with alarming regularity.
What is, I think, interesting and important about this is the fact that these UFO sightings seem to happen on a regular basis. There are so many of them over so long a period of time. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of sightings.
Despite this frenzy of activity, the Norwegian press refused to believe the local stories.
The local people up there had all different reactions. Some was a little bit afraid. The most frustrating thing for the local inhabitant was all the bad talking. Journalists writing funny things about the people up there.
One national paper even played a practical joke on the town by sending them an unusual gift. But Professor Strand is keen to investigate. In September 1982, he gathers a group of young scientists and camps out in the cold valley.
The first time, I remember it very well, we didn't expect to see something. Of course, you have read about it in the newspaper.
Suddenly, the team are confronted with a spectacular sight.
There it showed up. A huge, bright light in the landscape. 10 to 50 meters above the ground. We estimated the size to be 3 meters.
Strand's colleague photographs the UFO to secure evidence of the sighting.
It moved around some distance, not so very far, stopped again, and went on for that for nearly 2 hours. My reaction when I saw it was more, wow! And I think, what could that be?
The group watch as the object hovers across the valley, until finally it disappears.
This is the first picture which was taken by this light, hovering just above the hillside.
The sighting, recorded in this photograph, triggers a lifetime of devotion to these mysterious aerial phenomena.
The start of Project Testdown was in the summer of '83. We prepared a field investigation. We collected instruments, we got help from universities and military to give us some instruments. And we had a lot of instruments going up there.
For his investigation to be taken seriously by fellow scientists, Professor Strand decides not to use the word UFO.
Whenever you use the word UFO, everyone is skeptical, especially the scientists. So we decided to change the word, use another word. So we came up with the Hestdown phenomena, and that helped a lot in the scientific community.
Equipped with a small radar antenna, the team are staggered by the results.
There was a huge amount of sightings here in Hestdown. You can be up to 20 observations during a week. We had the radar measuring this light traveling at 30,000 kilometers an hour. We could follow something which was not seen as a light, wasn't seen at all. So there is something up there which are present in the valley, even when we don't see anything.
Even when the phenomena are invisible to the human eye, They are detected by radar, moving at incredible speeds. But what are they? One of the many theories put forward is ball lightning.
Ball lightning is something that's not entirely understood in science. It is something that's been observed by a very wide number of very credible witnesses, and it does move around very fast. It can move at speeds of a few meters per second to a few hundreds of meters per second.
Atmospheres physicist Grant Allen has studied the Hessdalen photographs.
In the photographs we've seen over Hessdalen, it's a quite clear background night sky. So this doesn't look like ball lightning. Ball lightning, from eyewitness reports, tend to last from a few seconds to a few tens of seconds. They're quite short-lived phenomena that tend to dissipate quite quickly.
What confuses Strand's team is that the moving lights appear to take many different forms.
What we have found out is that there is different types of phenomena.
The project identifies 3 different kinds of sighting: white or blue flashes, shapeless yellow lights, and a series of smaller apparitions that appear to fly in formation.
The more we study it, the more mysterious it is.
But as the project gathers momentum, disaster strikes.
In '85, we got only 1 observation, and of course we was very disappointed. And also the local people up there didn't report anymore. So we thought that this high activity period was ended.
1 year into the investigation, the lights mysteriously vanish. The chance to uncover a new phenomenon disappears as the project is shelved. Until strange events in the valley, 8 years later, bring the Hessdalen UFOs right back into Arling's life.
People come to me and said, it's still going on.
1993, Norway. A project to unlock the mystery behind hundreds of UFO sightings in the remote community of Hessdalen has lain dormant for 8 years. Tired of ridicule at the hands of journalists, locals no longer reported the flying objects. But all that is about to change.
People come to me and said, it's still going on, but we don't tell about it anymore because of all the writings, the bad writings in the newspaper. And then I was thinking, maybe I should start Project Hessdalen again.
Jan Moen has lived in the valley for 56 years. As a local, he is familiar with the mysterious phenomena.
Someone have seen the light on the ground. Someone has seen it moving besides the car, and someone have seen it on the heaven, moving slowly and very fast. People don't know what it is.
The initial project left Strand with more questions than answers. But nearly a decade later, he uses new contacts across the European science community to assemble a crack team of experts.
When we started project again, more foreign scientists become interested. And we have a good cooperation with both Italian and French scientists now.
A key member of the new team, electrical engineer Bjorn Gittler-Hogge.
My expertise, electromagnetic radiation and radar and optical spectrum analysis. They really didn't have too much data at that point.
Having secured funding, the team establish a permanent base in the valley. a 100-square-foot steel container is erected to monitor the lights in the valley 24/7. The base would become known as the Blue Box.
The Blue Box was equipped with a camera system. It was special programmed to react on different light phenomena.
In 1999, surveillance cameras in the Blue Box hit the jackpot, capturing this stunning footage. But the team want to do more than capture a UFO on camera. They want to find out what it is. They begin to look for clues in the atmosphere.
We are interested to find out if there is a new kind of interference source in the atmosphere that we didn't know about.
Assisted by the Institute of Radio Astronomy in Italy, the team installed new high-frequency radar at the Blue Box.
The Italian equipment was made to detect any kind of ionized matter.
Research now focuses on one particular theory, that the aerial phenomena might be pockets of plasma in the atmosphere.
Well, everybody's seen plasma. You've seen them in neon lights. Also, you get plasma balls where you have that mysterious glowing light in a glass ball. It's essentially an excited gas, and what that means that the gas has an electrical charge and then it glows.
Plasma is ionized gas, meaning it has highly charged particles. This makes it conductive and allows it to respond strongly to electromagnetic fields. The most iconic example in nature, the spectacular Northern Lights. But the team have no evidence that ionized gas is present in the valley. Then, in 2007, a field trip yields the most exciting breakthrough yet.
It was good weather condition. Approximately 9:30, suddenly it's a...
This video was filmed as the stunned scientists observed the phenomena.
Big light erupted as I was recording. And it moved back and forth. And everybody was yelling. And then we got this picture. Then it shot off again, and everything was quiet. But the radar went on. The radar were giving echoes. It was something out there.
Immediately, the team generate an optical spectrum of the photograph. The optical image splits white light into the different colors of the spectrum. The amount of each color present gives the team new information about the light source.
The funny thing was that it had all colors, like the sun. And the continuous spectrum, which we obtained, points towards that we have something like a star.
The data suggests the phenomena may not have any mass at all, just star-like lights flying through the valley.
This is the photo which shows the sharp angle during the movement. If this had had any mass, you shouldn't expect it would be possible to make such a sharp angle with this high speed.
But Strand's team still have no evidence of what the phenomenon is or where it might be coming from.
Some say that there is something new mechanism in physics. Some claim that's a new part of our world which we haven't discovered yet.
If you were to ask me if there is any credible explanation for the reported sightings over Hestalen, there's nothing that I know of in atmospheric science that can generate lights in the sky, at least insofar as we can tell from the photographs.
The Hestalen phenomena continue to be seen to this day. And as long as they appear in the valley, Erling Strand is determined to unlock the mystery once and for all.
I hope we will manage to find out what it is, because no one has ever managed to find a solution on what it is. So maybe if it's something from our nature, if it's something from our universe, something new we will discover.
But the investigation has achieved one important goal.
In the beginning of 80s, people said that we were crazy on the media, in the newspaper. But the scientists, starting with instrument up here in Hestalen, and said that there was something.
They lived with it so many years now, so it's not any reason to be so much afraid of it anymore.
17th of June, 1977, Tancos Air Base, Portugal. A routine flight for José Francisco Rodrigues, a pilot in the Portuguese Air Force. 11:15 a.m. The wheels of his Dornier 27 lift off the runway. What Rodrigues doesn't know is that within the next hour, he would have a central role in one of Europe's most extraordinary UFO encounters, and that he'd be lucky to escape with his life.
O caso de Castelo de Bode é importante porque temos aqui significativo exemplo de uma interação física de aparente objeto não identificado com os instrumentos de bordo do próprio avião.
Rodrigues is now retired from the military and no longer talks about this shocking event. But his case was the subject of a full investigation by the Portuguese Air Force. UFO investigator Francisco Correa has obtained access to the military files on the incident.
This is a Dornier 27, a plane exactly like the one flown by Francisco Rodrigues. On the day of the encounter, he would have been flying solo.
The Dornier 27 is a German single-engine light utility aircraft popular among pilots for its aerial maneuverability. Although just 23 years old, Rodrigues is an experienced pilot, a sergeant with over 800 flying hours behind him. Rodrigues is flying over Castelo de Bode, a hydroelectric dam 85 miles from Lisbon. Less than an hour after takeoff, he notices a dark object through the clouds. He radios back to base to find out if any other aircraft are flying in the area.
Uniform airborne from runway 34, climbing to 2,000 feet inbound altitude on Aberdeen Dam. Uniform confirmed code 3310.
He contacted the tower had nothing on radar, so he initiated a left turn.
Rodrigues maneuvers his aircraft to get a better view of the object.
And when almost completing that turn, he screamed. The control tower heard this scream.
At 2,000 feet, Rodrigues is face to face with something completely inexplicable.
At 11 o'clock, there was a big, round-shaped, dark object, about 12 to 15 meters wide. It stood there for 5-6 seconds, and it then, wow, went away.
As the UFO disappears, his Dornier begins to vibrate violently. Suddenly, the magnetic compass spins wildly out of control. And from an altitude of 2,000 feet, the plane slips into a dramatic nosedive.
The plane's engine was still working, but it just couldn't get hold of the plane. It was desperate, in panic, trying to get hold of the plane.
As the ground approaches, Rodriguez struggles to regain control of the aircraft. He opens the throttle, a life or death attempt to level the plane. Just above the dam, he manages to stabilize the Dornier. Francisco Correa has come to the Castello de Bo Dam, where two witnesses observed the dramatic nosedive.
There were two shepherds here who saw the airplane and saw it nosedive. And they saw it go below this hill over here, and then they saw it, bah! When the pilot turned off his engine and started to pull it off on again, it made bah! And they saw it, then the plane going just above, nice and easy.
On landing, the pilot undergoes a full medical examination. Although shaken, he's in good physical shape and immediately reports the UFO sighting to senior officers.
Pilots are often reluctant to come forward and speak about UFO sightings. They fear that they'll be ridiculed, they fear that there might be adverse consequences in terms of their career.
But the Portuguese Air Force take the report seriously and launch a thorough investigation into the incident. 35 years on from the UFO sighting, historian Joachim Fernandes has gained access to the military files.
Well, this is Francisco Rodriguez report from the Castello de Bo case. The letter from Air Force, as you can see here. The summary of his own case, Rodriguez case, and the report from pilot, report from a sighting of an identified flying object.
Rodriguez describes the object as being up to 15 meters wide, 3 meters wider than his Dornier.
And also the sketch from the object that emerged from the clouds and the encounter next to 6-7 meters from the plane. It was a scary experience.
The first mystery. Why did this large object flying at high altitude fail to appear on radar? Chris Morshead was a radar engineer with the Royal Navy for 30 years and has full faith in the technology.
When it comes to reporting objects, radar is probably far more accurate than the pilot. At high levels, it would be extremely unusual for something that physically appeared in front of a pilot not to actually be picked up on a radar.
At an altitude of 2,000 feet, the UFO should have been detected. So the possibility remains that what the pilot saw was not a solid object at all.
Quite often you do get atmospheric situations where tricks can be played on the eye, and it very much depends on the pilot, the lighting conditions, the weather conditions around him as to what he actually sees. And it can be quite easy to make mistakes.
Since the 1950s, many UFO sightings by pilots have often been explained by a curious atmospheric phenomenon.
You can actually get mirage effects due to temperature inversions, stuff like that, which can actually sort of fool the eye into thinking that there's something there which actually isn't there.
Well, a mirage is essentially created by different layers in the atmosphere that have a different temperature, i.e. the air has different densities. And it's a bit like putting, say, a spoon into a glass of water. You see that the metal in the spoon is bent. The same happens with light passing through the atmosphere with layers of different density. So objects in the distance on the horizon can sometimes appear distorted, they can appear closer to you or further away.
But a mirage does not explain the most puzzling question of all. Why did the Dornier, an aircraft renowned for its handling, nosedive so unexpectedly whilst the engine remained operational? Professor Raoul Berengel explains the dynamics of flight.
You have a low pressure above the wing and underneath the wing, a high pressure.
A wing is designed so the air moves faster over the top surface than it does over the bottom. The slow-moving air beneath the wing has a higher pressure, which gives the aircraft lift.
If this phenomena goes at very high speed, aside from the plane, what happens? You just lost your lift. Then the plane plunges down.
A jet passing at high speed could have sent the Dornier into a nosedive. But it doesn't explain why the magnetic compass spun wildly out of control.
Well, in order to spin a compass at that distance will be needed a force, a magnetic field generated by this object that goes around the plane. And a normal plane or a jet do not have such an amount of magnetic field.
Whatever the object was, remains a mystery.
That's an object that flies, and I don't know what it is, so it's a UFO.
But something else from that day adds an intriguing twist to the story. As Rodriguez slips into his nosedive, workers at the Castello de Bo Dam are dealing with an emergency of their own.
At the same time, pilot Rodriguez was experiencing his falling to the ground with his airplane. This hydroelectric dam was experiencing a huge, unexplainable drop of energy.
Power at the dam is restored. But the question remains whether these two strange incidents are connected, adding another layer of mystery to a puzzle that may never be completely solved.
The situation regarding UFOs is quite interesting. As an engineer myself, I'm a great skeptic. I always believe that there must be some rational explanation. Occasionally, though, there are those situations when you just can't explain the problem, the phenomena that you've seen. Whether or not that's spaceships coming from another world, who knows? Personally, I find it hard to believe that it is. I think it's probably just a natural phenomena we haven't identified.